Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you, our good friend Debbie again, everyone.
It's so nice to be here, and thank you to everybody for being here. I'm really excited to share this with you, and if you haven't already, go ahead and download. There is a free tutorial so you can follow along, and brush set. So you can download those freebies, and it's all from the Complete Procreate Print Toolkit, and yeah, so we can get started as soon as we need to.
Incredible. And if you're wondering, the Procreate Print Toolkit is the shiny green button just below us right now if you want to check that out. But without further ado, Debbie, over to you. I can't wait for this session.
Okay, so everybody can see my iPad. Fantastic. So
Wonderful.
This is what we're going to be able to create today. And the whole idea of this session is about creating a composition that supports lettering. So for those of you who feel like I'm new to lettering, I'm not that good at it, you know, you look at a blank page and you just start to letter, and it can be scary. And so I want to take that fear away. I want to show you an easy way to make a great lettering composition that really uses shapes and design, which is like the stamps. All of these are the stamps that come with the kit and that come with your freebie download today. And you can use these stamps. You don't have to draw anything. You can focus on the colors and the light and the contrast and doing all these cool effects. And then you have your lettering that you can easily fit into a space, which I think lettering it's always easier when you can fit it into a space. It just kind of already gives you some structure. Now, what you'll find when you open up your tutorial is there will be the layers already done for you, because we have limited time. And so I didn't want you to waste time stamping, because everybody knows how to stamp. But generally speaking, you're going to be turning off your background when we're doing this session. And you're going to take that sample guide and you're going to lower the opacity. So you're using this for the placement of the stamps and later on for color placement, but we don't need it to be at full strength. So just lower that down, and whatever's comfortable for you. So the process that I'm going to take you through is about stamping first. So you just stamp everything in the color that it needs to be stamped in, which I've already done, with the exception of Starry Night, because I want to show you how to stamp and then erase some overflow. So if you go to your Starry Night layer and then you get your Starry Night brush, which is right there, and you'll see in your directions on your tutorial, there are directions that it tells you to put the Starry Night at 59%. So we're going to come over here. I've got it about 58. Let's move it up a little bit. And, you know, that's close enough. Okay. And so we're just going to stamp that. Whoops, sorry. I forgot I have to change the color. So let's go to the yellow. Now you have in your set the colors. So what I'm going to do is just change this color to the yellow. And if you don't know, you can just press on a color that's in your instructions and it will automatically change the color for your stamp. Okay, Debbie. We're on the starry. Oh, sorry, that's why. Don't do what I did. Don't keep the layer hidden. You have to.
I feel like these live sessions are always a great learning lesson, though, for little things
like,
that
okay,
can go wrong so
many
easily.
mistakes. There we go. So you can kind of see that there is the yellow stars. Now, because I am doing this on a separate canvas, you will have overflow if you're doing it in the tutorial. So you just want to erase anything that goes outside of that rectangle. And what I'm going to do, because I know that I don't want these stars to be too covering up the landscape and the boy and the dog. So I'm going to take my eraser tool, and this is where I'm just going to eliminate a lot of those stars. There's one thing you have to be careful is it's great to have dynamics, and a composition that's really dynamic and has a lot of things in it, but we don't want to obscure things. So I'm looking at the fact that on the Zeppelin, I want to also erase stars from there because we're going to have our lettering there. And we can actually go in and erase more later. But this is just to show you how you want to make sure to eliminate clashes as they come up. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the hot air balloon. So if I go up to the hot air balloon and turn that on, you can see that there's the hot air balloon layer. And I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to bring it down here. Now I can eliminate this because I just put that in there as a reminder for me. Now, keeping the color on yellow, I'm going to tap on the duplicated layer. I'm going to click on Alpha Lock, and then I'm going to click on Fill Layer. And now that is yellow. And I like to always click off of Alpha Lock. And what you're going to do now is go up to the selection tool, which is that arrow at the top, and we're going to move it over slightly to the right. And it's a little bit hard to see with that background off, so we can adjust it later. But this is starting to automatically give you a highlight, a very easy way to do a highlight. And we'll just unselect that. So now we're ready to start coloring spaces. And people often get the reference tool and the clipping mask kind of confused. And so I like to kind of give you a simple guide for determining what you do with each. So the reference tool is for coloring inside spaces. So when you have negative spaces, like we have the Zeppelin that has negative space inside, the landscape has some negative space inside. The moon has some negative space inside. So those are the places where we're going to use the reference tool. And a good way to remember where that layer goes. So if you're using the reference tool, you want to put a layer below, and versus a clipping mask where you would put the layer above, because C comes before R in the alphabet. So maybe that can kind of help you remember a clipping mask goes above and a reference layer goes below. Little tip. So we're going to go ahead and go to that reference layer, and we're going to go to the hot air balloon layer and turn on reference. So what we know is that everything that we want to work on in this reference, in the hot air balloon that is a negative space, we're going to actually do it on the reference layer.
Marie
Now,
says in the chat, great tip.
oh,
And so does
good.
Kristen. Yeah, I think a few people kind of discovering a new technique there.
Okay. Now I've got to get my colors back up because I did not give myself a color guide here. But what I'm going to do is just, you can see the adventure awaits. We want to have that dark behind there. So I'm going to go ahead and press on come on, there we go. Press on that. It's kind of a dark gray really, but it's black. In your color wheel, it would be black. And I'll go ahead and dial that down a little bit. And I'm going back to that reference layer. And now I'm going to choose this soft brush. And this soft brush comes from your Procreate. It's native to Procreate. So it's not one of our brushes. And now I'm just going to, whoops, Debbie. Okay, let's get that up a little bit higher. So I'm just going to fill that in. And I'll go into these spaces. And we can always do a little cleanup on aisle 9, I like to call it, later if we go outside of the box, so don't worry about that.
This graphic, by the way, is one of the most whimsical things I think I've ever seen. It's so great.
Aw.
And the little dog as well.
Yeah. So this is all one stamp. I have some of the stamps in the kit that are already put together, so you don't have to stress about what should I put with the Zeppelin and what should I put in the hat. So I thought this would be a fun one, so that's what I did. All right, so now we've done that. Oh, we got to go back in here, sorry. In the little space below. I'm going to go a little bit lower. And I'm not going to worry a lot about my coloring since this is for demonstration purposes. Okay, so now we want to go to the moon because that is something we're going to be filling in with yellow. So we would go to, so let's go to the moon category. And you can see I've already stamped it. And we're going to now click on reference for the moon. And I've got that reference layer below the clipping mask because when we put a clipping mask on later, we're actually going to put the clipping mask color over the reference. So that's why that's there. All right, so we want to go back to the yellow. Go back like this. And again, I'm going to just hold it and change the color. Well, I could just keep that on there. And, oh, and I made a line there. So we're going to clear that off. Okay. So I've got reference on the moon. That's real important. And I've got my reference layer clicked on. So now, again, I'm going to go with this simple brush. You can also use the Studio pen, and that also comes from Procreate. And lower this. This, we can just do the little drag and drop and do the same thing for the little star. Oops. Now that
Debbie,
happens sometimes.
did you draw that moon illustration or is that
Yes.
scanned from like an old vintage?
No.
You drew that?
Every single 450 of the drawings are all hand done. So
that looks so authentically vintage. Like I can totally imagine that in an old timey book or something.
yeah. Well, I did
That's great.
reference, you know, a lot of those types of illustrations. All right. So we've got our moon done. And you can see kind of how it's coming along. And now we're going to also go to the landscape. So we've got the landscape already taken care of there, already stamped for you. So now we're going to change reference for the landscape. And by the way, reference can only be on one layer at a time, which is good because otherwise things would be very confusing. So now I'm going to turn this back on and I'm going to go and get the color that I want to fill in. Let's see. I want that color. Okay. So I'm going to that reference. I'm going here and let's see if I got the right color. Yeah. And I actually kind of prefer because there's all these lines. So I'd have to do each space separately. I kind of prefer to go in with this and just sweep it over. And then I can get, it's not so flat, I can get a little bit more variance in the shade. Okay, so we're already like, you know, almost there. We've got a lot colored and so this is how it moves along pretty quickly.
And to clarify, it doesn't matter if that soft brush is not going right to the edges.
No.
We're not going for a solid block color, are we?
No. Mm-mm. And, you know, again, like you can tweak it later. So it's one of those things where as things come together, I kind of go back in and, modify and change. And, but I kind of want that background to have a little bit more gradation to it.
Mhm.
So now we've covered the moon and the landscape and the Zeppelin. Now it's time to go to coloring the solids. So remember, negative spaces, you use the reference tool. Solid spaces or lines, you use the clipping mask. So now we're going to identify the solid spaces. And the first thing is the fireworks, which are really cool. And I'm going to turn those on. I'm going to turn the background on so you can see the fireworks. So I love these stamps. They're really fun to use, and you can just use them in so many different situations. But we're using them to bring this really dynamic contrast and light show kind of going on. So this is what I'm talking about when we're saying create a lettering composition that doesn't depend on the lettering to be perfect or wonderful or highly professional. This is kind of your easy go-to for creating a composition that is like wow, but it's definitely just a lot easier than doing perfect lettering, which everybody has their off days, even when you're a lettering artist. So, all right. So if you go to the fireworks group, you'll see that each of the fireworks has a clipping mask already above it. And so we'll just go to fireworks 1, and I'm going to show you that's the one that's in the upper right corner. And we're going to get those colors going. Whoops. So you can see we've got a combination of yellow and orange. And so let's just start with the orange in the center. Oops, don't want that. There we go. And all right, there we go. All right, so we're on fireworks 1. And again, I like to use these soft brushes a lot. I think they just kind of have a nice feel to them. So we're just
Mhm.
doing that kind of thing. And then we go a little bit softer around there. And then we come out a little bit and we can go even a little bit larger.
Debbie,
Okay.
I have a question if you don't mind.
Oh, one thing
So, yeah,
quickly.
please.
I forgot to turn on clipping mask. So there we go.
Oh yeah,
And
Diane
I
was
did it on
was
the
just
wrong,
asking about this about
yeah,
clipping masks in the chat. So
and I did it on the wrong. There we go. All right. Go to the clipping mask, turn on clipping mask. Now we're ready. Yes, now you can ask your question, Tom.
um, so this is obviously a really well structured, beautiful composition.
Mhm.
But you're recreating a composition that's kind of like here's one I made earlier. When
Mhm.
you first came up with this composition, did it come together pretty easily, or was it a lot of trial and error and shifting things around?
Oh, sure. You're kind of like moving things and seeing what looks more dynamic, and even just as you're positioning the fireworks, you kind of want to have, you're always looking at good design. So you want to
Mhm.
have something that, they're not all equal in size. They kind of have a function in that they serve as a background, but they also provide light source. So yeah, it's definitely something that you play around with. But
Mhm.
that's why I personally really like stamps, because you can do that really easily. You can stamp them, move them around. You don't like it, you can stamp something else. It's, to me, it kind of saves you time and gives you a lot of opportunity to just play with thing concepts that maybe you wouldn't have put together before. We could have had some flowers in the background that could have been kind of fun.
Mhm.
So that's why I like kind of working with stamps, and then you just focus on the fun part to me, which is the color and the design of it.
Well, I think the great thing about your print toolkit is there are so many graphics, hundreds and hundreds, that really there's endless combinations and compositions that you could create.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons, why I can't stop when I'm creating, because I have so much fun creating them, and I know playing around with them is like really fun for me too. So I kind of envision, what do people want to, do with them? And I kind of imagine that people also want that ease of just trying something, saying, nah, that doesn't work, and trying something different, and just not always having to come up with your own designs, because that's a lot of work. I like to lessen the load. So we're going now to the, and by the way, let me know time wise if I need to speed up or do anything differently, so that we
So
can.
I'm very happy to go a little bit over today because we had a late start. If you are, Debbie,
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that.
appreciate it.
Whoops. Okay, Debbie, there we go again. On the wrong, don't do what Debbie does. On the wrong layer.
It's so easily done, though.
It is. It's a constant thing. Yeah. All right. So now this, I'm just kind of really coloring this all in orange. And again, like, you can, with this soft brush, what I love about it is you can make a lot of gradations in the shading, which is really nice. Okay. And look how quickly it's coming together. And, we haven't done that much, which is my favorite part. I'm getting lazier, as I get older.
Yeah, you mean you're learning to work smarter?
I'm learning to work. Thank you, Tom. Yes, I'm learning to work smarter. I like that. But I think, there's a lot of people that are doing this for their own pleasure. They're doing it as a hobby. They're doing it to create something they might want to print, send a friend, make a card or print and put in their own home. And so why make it stressful? This is, to me, like, the whole point of creating this kit was because of that, because I want people to just really have that play, just enjoy the process, and especially of coloring, because I like to color. It's kind of a zen-like thing. So for
Yeah,
me,
it really is.
it's, yeah, it's like, create that. I I wanted to create, this kit with the incredible ShoutBAM. Jimbo and Taya are just phenomenal, and they created all the great graphics, and they did some of the brushes, and so, I got to work with those lovely people. All right. So now we've got our fireworks done. We're going to move to the hot air balloon. And I want the hot air balloon to stand out against, different from the silhouettes of the boy and the dog and the ropes and the ladder and the hat. So I'm going to go ahead and change color. Okay. Now I have to move this up above. So as I change color, I can access it. And I'm going to go for this. It's like a lighter purple color. And now I'm going to go back to the hot air balloon grouping, go to that clipping mask, and mark clipping mask. And now same, well, I think I'm going to switch to this studio pen. Again, it just comes with your Procreate, because I can get a little bit more, a smaller brush. So this is where I want to just create an outline for this Zeppelin that kind of stands out a little bit, but it's softer, because you're thinking about the light and how it's hitting it. And so it's going to, even if this was black or gray, it's going to change it and give it a softer color around the edges.
Is the sharper outline there? That's called a rim light, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's one term. hmm I think there's lots of different terms for it, maybe depending on, uh, you know, where you went to school, or I don't know.
Hmm.
But
My
yes.
my my mind's still blown from the workshop that Godwin did about lighting. There was like 100 different light theories I had no idea even
Oh,
existed.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it can get very complicated, and I like to keep things simple. So to me, I just think about what I know about light in general is that
Hmm.
light actually travels. It isn't just like it hits that side. When you have something that's rounded, it's going to go around it. So your greatest amount of light is going to be, of course, the first point of impact, but that light is going to travel, especially around any rounded surface. So that's what, I think you think about, and try to duplicate as much as possible that kind of effect. But it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be perfect. You know, like no one's going to know if you kind of slightly messed up the lighting. As long as you're kind of getting a general glow kind of effect. And that's really what we're trying to do here. So, all right. And another thing that I think is really also good to use is that smudge tool. So, we're going to use that a little bit more, but even as I come around here on this area, like in this larger area here, that's solid. I want to smudge that more. All right, that looks decent enough. Now we're going to go to the landscape. So, landscape layers. And let me know in the comments if this the way I laid out the tutorial with the layers already set up and with the stamps already stamped, is that helping you more to follow along? Because that's really important to me. And I know it can be difficult when you're trying to listen and watch somebody and also try to do the actual tutorial at the same time. So my goal was to make that easier so you can do it with me. And so let me know in the comments if that is working for you.
Yeah, do
All
let
right.
us know, everyone. Hopefully, it's well structured.
Yes. So again, I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm going to get this lighter shade of purple. And I've got my clipping mask, and this time I'm going back to that soft brush. Yeah. And again, now I can kind of go around here and think about, there are going to be areas that are farther away where it's not going to get as much light. So we don't want to necessarily do that all as one. We want to definitely have um, some areas that are getting more light. All right. So now, we want to look for clashes for sure. And you can see that underneath this um, Zeppelin, we've got some stuff showing through. There's two different ways to handle that. One is you can actually take that reference layer and multiply it, or duplicate it rather. So now we've got that covered. But you might also want to go in to some of these fireworks. And I know that this one is, I believe, yes. So we'll go into the fireworks, and we're just going to erase some of the stuff behind there. Whoops, that's too large. And again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to clear up every single little issue, but oh, we got some here too. but I just want to show you how to take care of that. Let's see, that is, there we go. So what's the response, Tom? Are people finding the
They're
tutorial
finding it
setup
extremely
was good?
helpful, I think. Yeah,
Good, good. Okay,
definitely.
wonderful. All right. And also, you see that there's a, I'm going to indicate it. Hold on. Nope, wrong one. Let's see. All right, there it is. That particular firework is really competing with the dog and specifically with the dog. So we want to go in and erase some of that because we want to think about the composition. And so yeah, I might leave some of that in, but let me go smaller here. Definitely get rid of it here in the landscape and by the hat and by the ladder. So I might kind of, I like that it's showing off the dog, so I don't want to take it all away. But I might take this away. And these are the kinds of decisions that you make as you're fine tuning. So we're kind of in that mode of fine tuning. And so fine tuning is just like overall as a composition, how is this working? Where are there problems? Where are there clashes? And let's see. Okay. And also I feel like over here, this is interfering. Okay. I missed a little bit of that. All right, we're on the clipping mask. There we go. Okay, so now I want you to go ahead and turn on your background if you didn't already. And when you look at this, it's already looking like a really strong composition and a really nice piece. And again, we can go in like and do little things that can add. For instance, we're going to go to the moon, and we're going to add a clipping mask there, and we're going to take this. And I just like to go in and take this soft color that we've already had before. All right. Well, I didn't want that on the clipping mask. Okay. And we've got that soft brush. And let's kind of give this a little bit more shape. And these are the little details that I think can make a difference.
Yeah, they definitely can. And
Yeah.
I love this phase, right? You've mapped out your key composition, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's like just, adding that sparkle.
Right. Now I'm wondering why that's looking a little not as sharp. And that would be a good question. Let me see. Well, I'm just going to try something here. We have to mark that as reference again. Nope. All right. Well, for Debbie to figure out later why it did that. But there we go. We have a little bit of that glow on the moon. Let's come in with this studio pen, and I have to go back to reference, right? And that's the important thing, is always know if it's a negative space, then you're going to be using the reference. If it's a solid space, then you're going to be using the clipping mask. So we could play around more with this, but I'm going to go to the lettering phase. So what you'll see is that when we go to lettering, I've created a series to show you some basic steps, and you can use any of these or some of these. It kind of works in a lot of different ways. So the first thing is to turn on, I'm going to turn off all of this. Okay. You see that line structure? So when you're lettering in a space that is a three-dimensional object, you want to try to envision how you would letter as though it were actually on the object. So I just do some quick lines that kind of follow that shape, and then you can work with your letter lines. So once I did the structure lines, and I'm just going to take those structure lines and reduce the opacity so I can show you the lettering lines. So now I know that I want the word adventure creates. So I'm creating some lines to follow along as I sketch those out. And then I go to the, let's see, the letter sketch. And again, I'm going to, okay, reduce the opacity there. So this is just starting to show me where I can place those letters so that they fit in the space. And then from there, we can warp the sketch. So let me show you how to do that. How are we doing on time, Tom?
I think we're okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I've clicked on the arrow and I'm going to choose the warp tool and advanced mesh. And I'm going to enlarge this. So you have that faint structure underneath. So we kind of know that we want to pull it in this direction to follow that line. And it's kind of crazy because sometimes it works better than others. I'm just going to tell you that. But in general, you know, if you've got those lines there to guide you, it really is helpful to get this kind of feeling that this is actually on the shape. So you kind of play around with it till you get it where it feels good to you. And then we'll take our, let's take the studio pen, and then you can, on another layer, so I'm doing this as a demo, let me put a layer on top of that. When you're worried about, oh, if I letter and I make a mistake and I got to keep erasing, instead have the layer, the sketch layer underneath like you would normally, but now this one is warped. So it's actually helpful to then just work on your letters on a, that's too large. Go back. Let's go down here. There you go. To work on thickening your letters. And if you mess up, you know, you haven't like messed up the whole piece and you're like, I got to erase everything and start over. So you just start kind of filling them out. And this is being done very loosely. I'm not trying to, you know, perfect anything just yet, but I'm using the same width of a brush so that I'm starting to get some consistency in the width of the letters. And you can kind of get the idea of what I'm doing. And then you're going to make decisions about, okay, I want to have, you know, some of these thicker. So you add more weight to those lines that would be appropriate. And if you're ever wondering, like, where does the weight go? Just like pull up a font that's just a regular text font and that has the variety of weights, and you'll be able to identify it pretty easily. So that's kind of like your process of just working with the lettering so you don't now have to warp this and then mess it up. You've already warped the sketch, but you can still make adjustments in the end. And when it all comes down to the end, that's what I came up with. So this is not perfect lettering, but because the composition is so strong and so dynamic and has it tells a story, your lettering doesn't have to be perfect. I always think about, I don't know if you've ever like bought a greeting card that the lettering sucked or the illustration sucked, but you love the saying so much,
Hmm.
you just buy it anyway. So to me, I think of that like when there's a story being told that is, just you're really liking it and you're feeling some connection and you like, I just like the whole boy and the dog and the dreaming and the adventure, then that's more important than one little detail like the lettering. So that's why that composition and design and color and highlight and contrast, that's why they're actually, to me, more important.
Hmm.
Um, but we're also going to add some shading to the lettering because it's also being affected by the light. So we're going to get that soft orange. We've made a clipping mask over the lettering, and we're going to take that soft brush. Oh, and we're on the wrong layer. Oh, no, there we go. We have to turn the layer on. Don't do what Debbie does. Do what Debbie says. So we've kind of got that. And I'm also going to come in with this soft color here and kind of come down here with that, down by the awaits. And then another thing that I like to do is go into that hot air balloon that we duplicated, the yellow, and let's use that smudge tool. And now we can kind of make it stronger in some places and less strong in other places by using that smudge tool. But we can also kind of create a glow that comes like off of, and we might actually need to move that slightly, go back to uniform. I'm going to tap a little bit there because it's probably too much. There we go. So we can come up here and smudge a little bit. I kind of feel like the Zeppelin would be causing the light to not be as strong at the top of those ropes. So that's like the thinking that you're using when you're trying to decide where you highlight things. And in this Zeppelin area, we need to get rid of that. So that's a reference. Those are blank spaces. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to turn reference back on. And I'm going to take the dark color. And I'm not on the reference. There we go. And I'm going to come back to the solid clipping mask. And I want to bring this lighter purple in. So this is where you're playing and just fine tuning and, really just trying to make it feel a little bit more, add the little details that kind of make it more fun. And I would go back into the stars. Whoop. And this is where I'd look at clashes. So I don't like how that's clashing with the taking some shine away from the moon. So I'm going to eliminate some there. I'm going to eliminate some back here because there's too much going on with the fireworks. So again, this is where we're thinking about the composition and thinking about what we should pay attention to, what areas are clashing. And even on the background, I'm going to put a clipping mask. And I'm going to take the orange, soft orange, and I'm going to give a little bit of a glow around. Actually, I'm going to go with the white. And make this kind of large. And I'm going to put a little bit of a glow around the moon. And these are, like I said, these are the fun details that really just start to give it more character, tell more of the story. And I think I'm going to go back in and add some more of this. And let's see, I need to be on, the biggest thing is what layer you need to be on. I think sometimes you're like, wait a minute. Okay, this has to be referenced. I'm going back into the landscape and using reference because I want those spaces. That's what I'm trying to fill. And I'm using the soft brush. So I want to kind of bring more of that in. And then just like I filled it, I'm also going to take the eraser because I kind of want to have a shadow from the Zeppelin. So I'm going to make an oval-y shape. And that's looking pretty close to the sample guide. But again, I'm going to go in with that smudge tool. I don't like sharp lines when you've got moonlight because it's a lot softer than a stark light. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because I think we've accomplished generally the whole idea of the sample guide.
It's such a stunning composition as well, and I know a lot of people will have been following along. So please do share your version of this composition
Oh yes,
in
yeah,
the community hub. We'd love to see it, and I know Debbie hangs out in there sometimes too. So hopefully, you get some nice feedback from Debbie.
absolutely, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. Yes,
Debbie,
that'd
thank
be
you again.
fantastic.
Love
Thank you,
to hear that
thank you.
you're doing such good in the world as ever, and I can't wait to catch up soon.
Me too, me too. And
All
thanks
right.
everybody for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you same
Yes.
time next week.
All right,
Bye.
take care.